It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's Flipmas, and everybody gets a present. I guess except Iowa.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's normally him. But today, I upgraded with Joseph Hastings from On 3, his cohort over there at On 3. Joseph, how are you today?
Luke, I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, and best of luck land airplane. You've got that whole get up. I dig it.
Yeah, I know it's pretty crazy right now. Actually, I'm probably gonna do a little Christmas cut soon. Get it shaved down for the Under Armour All America game. So I'm letting it grow out for the time being.
Well, I'm talking more about the whole setup there. You got the whole big thing. I mean,
yeah. I've got the headphones. I don't know what brand it is. On3 sent it to me, but I'm using it. I like it. Next time I'm gonna use the microphone, the Samsung microphone. So be on the lookout for that one.
I'm down with it, man. Okay, we got to talk about this. Kadyn Proctor is going to take an unofficial visit to Alabama. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that while it is unofficial, it's probably unofficially official because I'm just guessing. You tell me how this works. I'm guessing he's not paying for this on his own dime. I'm betting. I don't know how it works. I want you to tell us, first of all. Secondly, does this mean that Alabama's chance of flipping him from Iowa or have upgraded immensely?
I mean, first of all, to answer your first question, it's an unofficial visit, so it will be on Kadyn Proctor's own dime. That's how these trips work. When he took his official visit to Alabama back in June, that was fully paid for. Didn't have to pay a dime for that one, for travel, for meals, etc. When you look at this one here, this upcoming trip, you have to say that it boosts Alabama's chances. Obviously, this is an unofficial visit on his own dime the weekend before early signing period, which begins on Wednesday, December 21st. So the timing of this benefits Alabama tremendously. Now, am I going to put in a prediction for the Crimson Tide to pull this one off? Not yet. I mean, obviously, we want to wait to see what the returns of this trip are. Oregon obviously played host to him for a visit last month. I think Alabama was trying to get him on campus during the season for the Texas A&M game or the Iron Bowl. That didn't happen. We knew that there was a chance that Proctor was going to visit Alabama after committing to Iowa. But I mean, the timing of this is definitely more beneficial compared to what it would have been had it been during the season. So, yeah, to answer that second question, you have to say it does boost Alabama's chances just because of the timing of the visit, but still waiting to see how it actually goes.
All right. Well, I want to ask you this. Okay, the reason I brought that up about the unofficial visit, I know that unofficially, when an unofficial visit happens, it is on the player's own dime. But I say that because I went to one of the Iowa message boards, unfortunately, one of your competitors, just because I was frantically looking. And they said, yeah, it's an unofficial visit, but I can bet he's not paying for it. Now, that was a moderator who said that. It wasn't. Now, some of these moderators can be fanboys, but the reason I brought it up was like, okay, I wonder if there's something new now that I don't know about in the land of NIL. Maybe that he doesn't have to pay for it. I don't know. I didn't know how it operated anymore. Frankly, I don't know that any of us know the rules anymore anyway.
No, that is kind of irresponsible to say something like that. Like to say, I bet that, that he isn't paying for it, especially because of the implications of that, But look, an unofficial visit is when the prospect and their family has to pay for the visit. That's been the case. That has been the case, even in the new era of NIL. That remains the case. So, no, I don't know what sources were behind that statement that were made there, if there were any, but that this is an unofficial visit that Kadyn Proctor and his family are paying for.
Okay, so that's good then. I mean, I like that even more for Alabama. It means that they are very serious. I mean, you're not going to spend that kind of money and not come here and be like, I mean, we'll compare this to James Smith taking an unofficial to Auburn this weekend. We'll talk about James Smith in a bit, but James Smith only has to go from Montgomery to Auburn. I mean, that's not a big deal. And they're going to treat you like royalty when you get there. So the transportation is really all you got to deal with. But I mean, to go from Iowa to Alabama, believe me, I've made that flight several times. It isn't the easiest in the world. So
Yes.
I feel like this is even more good news for the Tide. And look, if Kadyn Proctor were to commit to Alabama or flip to Alabama and sign with the Tide, the way people would view this class, even though it's already number one, I think just explode, because that's probably the one thing people believe Alabama's missing. Look, they don't have Arch Manning, right? But they've got a couple of quarterbacks that people are really, really like. I know the staff loves Dylan Lonergan. I know they love Eli Holstein. The running back, arguably the two best running backs in the class. Wide receiver, okay, they don't have the bona fide five-star of a Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs in the past, but Jalen Hale is really coveted. Then you look at the defensive line. Let's assume they end up getting James Smith. That sort of covers that base. And then, of course, Hunter Osborne, very good player. All the way down the line. The offensive line is probably the one thing people are like, okay, it's a good class, but it doesn't wow you like some of the classes in the past. But if you add Kadyn Proctor to this class, all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's about as good as you can do.
I think the funny thing about this class, Luke, is that it's kind of defined by what Alabama hasn't been able to do in their own state and what they've been able to do in other states. And if you add Kadyn Proctor to the fold, that further adds to kind of that narrative that's been shaping up here. Alabama fans are obviously upset that they weren't able to land Peter Woods, who committed to Clemson. They weren't able to land Kelby Collins, who committed to Florida. Those are two big losses at positions of need along the defensive line. But then you look at what they did in Georgia, landing three of the top four players in the state there, and Dylan Lonergan, Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes. If they're able to pull off the flip of Kadyn Proctor, the number one player in Iowa, Eli Holstein's a top 5 player in the state of Louisiana. And then Richard Young, obviously one of the top players in the state of Florida. I think it further adds to that narrative and builds upon what Alabama has been able to do in this class, which is have great success in other states, landing legacy prospects from other programs. They're hoping to do the same with Damari Brown, whose father played for Miami. They're really doing an excellent job in this class. Unfortunately, people are going to be upset about the way that things finish along the defensive line. But if you add Kadyn Proctor, I completely agree with you. It changes the perception of this class immensely. The offensive line group, it goes from, I think, good, bordering great to potentially elite. We're really high on Wilkin Formby on 3 as he's a borderline top 50 prospect. Miles McVay is somebody that could receive a rankings boost. He was supposed to have participated in the Under Armour All-America game. I don't know if that's going to be the case since he's starting practice today, but he's somebody that we're obviously going to continue to evaluate. You look at Raquez McKeldry, who's committed to Georgia at one time, flipped to Alabama. Raymond Polito, somebody that the staff has been really high on. So, the offensive line group, it's big. It's already big. It's got a lot of length. And if you add Kadyn Proctor to the fold, you're looking at a potential, freshman starter for the program, or somebody who could be contributing for early playing time.
And if there are any Iowa fans watching by chance that, look, they may be of the mindset that, hey, why would you go to Alabama when you're from Iowa, you've been committed to Iowa for a while? I mean, first of all, Alabama speaks for itself. If the state of Alabama had a college wrestler, and he went to Iowa, it flipped to Iowa, I couldn't complain about it very much. But I'd looked at Iowa's class, and this is something I don't normally do. Iowa is always in the top 35 of recruiting, I would say, top 30 to top 35, plus or minus. I looked at their classes. 1 5-star in Kadyn Proctor, 1 4-star, 18 3-stars. So, you can say that you can go to Iowa and be a superstar and, Tristan Wirfs or whatever you want to say. But in the end, I think greatness wants to play with greatness. And so it wouldn't shock me if this flip were to happen. And I'm almost banking on it now. I hate to do that. I hate to be so cocky about it. I really do. Alabama fans hate to be cocky.
I mean, honestly, Luke, there's every reason to be. Look, Kadyn Proctor had Alabama in his top 2 in June before committing to Iowa, and this situation kind of mirrors Centurion Perkins in a little bit, in a sense, because Perkins is committed to Ole Miss, but had he been a prospect in any other state and had the admiration for Alabama that he had, he'd be committed to Alabama. I think it's the home appeal that's kind of kept him solid with the Rebels, and same thing with Kadyn Proctor in Iowa, because you look at Iowa's program right now. What are the appeals? I mean, they just won 7-5 and had a 44-point loss to Ohio State. You mentioned, the opportunity to go there, kind of be the superstar, following the lead of Tristan, following the footsteps of Tristan Wirfs, his teammate and one of his best friends, former teammate, I should say, Xavier Nwakpa, plays for Iowa. He kind of made that shocking decision to choose Iowa over Ohio State last cycle. So you look at that, and there are obviously some appeals there, but had Kadyn been based in any other state and had that, that love for Alabama, the admiration for them, you'd say that he'd be committed to the Crimson Tide right now. We'll see. I'm not predicting any flips. Not saying anything's gonna happen. We're in the day and age of like you have to expect the unexpected essentially. Things can change over these next few days before early signing period, but once again, definitely a huge boost for Alabama here, getting him on campus.
I got to ask you about Centurion Perkins here in just a second, mostly about the way I've been butchering his name. But right now, I need to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is where you want to go to get that bet in. You can bet on baseball, you can bet on basketball, you can bet on football, college, pro, whatever you want, MMA, golf. They got it at BetOnline.net. Here's the beauty thing about BetOnline.net. It's easy to pay in. It's even easier to pay out. And the site is super simple to navigate. I've gone on there several times and played poker. It's a ton of fun. And look, it's safe, it's secure. A lot of people worry about that type of stuff, but it's so easy and so fun and so safe. Go check out betonline.net. Again, you can bet on whatever you want to bet on. Look, a big weekend coming up in the NFL. Bowl games are starting. You want to be a part of all that. You want to get in action. Go betonline.net because that's where the game starts. Okay, Centurion Perkins, that's how you say that. And I've been saying Centurion Perkins, which sounds like the world's worst orange. I don't know why. I mean, that's the way it looks to me, but you're sure it's Centurion. I want to know this because look, here's the other thing. I'm embarrassed to say I went to the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. I was a part of the radio broadcast, and every one of us were calling him Centurion Perkins the whole time.
Yeah, it is definitely Centurion. I spoke with him back in October. I asked him, the first thing I asked him when we got on the phone, I was like, hey, man, how do you pronounce your name? Because I've been saying Centurion. And he said it's Centurion. Because it doesn't sound like it should be Centurion. Like it doesn't have that, that extra, vowel there to add to it. But no, he said it's Centurion. Charles Power, our director of scouting and rankings, told me that he spoke with Centurion at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star practice, found out it was Centurion. So, yes, it's definitely Centurion.
Okay, but it's not really my fault. I mean, you were saying Centurion too, right? I mean, that's the way it's spelled.
Yeah, I was saying Centurion. And Charles, when when we were talking, because he did me a favor for the interview, he asked me before, he's like, so you're sure it's Centurion, right? I was like, yeah, he told me it. And then, I heard in the audio him ask for it, if it's Centurion or Centurion. So yeah, I think everyone has been saying Centurion.
Okay.
Yeah.
How I have not said we're all living in a yellow Centurion is beyond me. But
look, during the summer when I thought that flip was about to happen, I was singing that. I was singing the Beatles. I was like, we're all living in a yellow Centurion. Like, it was going through my head. Trust me. But no, I think I think that was funny. You're talking about BetMGM, Bet Online. You look at that. I would have put all my money on it being Centurion versus
there's
Centurion.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And look, there's part of me that's like, it when you see it spelled, because it's spelled SUNTARINE, right?
Yeah. That's the exact spelling.
That's Centurion all day, but Centurion. Okay, look, you tell me. I spell my name Luke, but if I told you to pronounce it John, that's what you'd have to do, right? I mean, that's what we do. So
yeah, I know.
But man. Now I want to talk about Damari Brown. Damari Brown
Mhm.
You mentioned that he is the son of a former Miami Hurricane. Know that. So tell us about
Mhm.
that and what Alabama's chances are of getting him in the fold.
Yeah, I believe his father's name is pronounced Selwyn. I haven't been able to get that. Speaking of name pronunciations, I wasn't able to get that one down. But yeah, no, the Damari Brown is a Miami Hurricanes legacy. Obviously, they're in Plantation, Florida, playing for American Heritage, about an hour away or so from Coral Gables. So yeah, there's definitely an appeal there when you talk about the Hurricanes. And we just saw Ruben Bain commit to Miami over Alabama, Florida State, others. This week. So it's tough landing, prospects with connections to the Hurricanes program who live there in South Florida, especially with the way that Mario Cristobal and company are recruiting. But hey, Damari Brown is somebody. I think he's a little bit different. I think he's someone who would be more than willing to leave the state. I think Alabama is in the best position right now, in my opinion. I had him in our mock class of a couple of weeks ago, just over a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still going to kind of stick by that projection. Not an official prediction, but I think just based on the way things are trending, I like Alabama's chances. Nick Saban there, coaching DBs, that's a real big appeal for him. Earl Little, his former teammate, he's heard a lot of great things about Alabama from him. He also knows about Patrick Surtain, and the success that he had at Alabama, going from American Heritage to Tuscaloosa to the NFL, having great success there. I think he's evaluating all of that. He likes the culture at Alabama. He's been there twice this fall. Went to the Mississippi State game and the Iron Bowl. So yeah, just I have my projection in for Alabama, but once again, there's so much that can change between now and Wednesday. So we'll wait to see what happens then.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one, and it's obvious to me. I mean, Nick Saban and company really love this kid, and so I'm
Mhm.
excited about the prospects of him. And look, I think he would be one of the, if Alabama were to get him late, if you get Kadyn Proctor, Qua Russaw, and James Smith, I mean, Damari Brown, I feel like we wouldn't get love. I feel like we
Yeah.
would be one of those things where, I mean, he should be celebrated a little more because he's a dude.
Yeah, he is. He's a true press man type of corner, very physical, very strong. When we talk about physical development and projecting to David Ballew's strength and conditioning program, what work will we need to be done? Damar's not someone who's really going to need that. He obviously everyone's going to have to make some sort of transition, but from a physical perspective, he definitely has all the tools. I got to see him in person. He really didn't get to do too much since the team he was going up against ran the ball for the most part, didn't really throw his way, but he looks like he has decent speed in person from what I was able to gather. As I mentioned before, physically developed at this stage in his career. So I think he would be an exciting addition, top 25 cornerback in this class, adding alongside Jaleel Hurley. And then, you're still in the mix for Desmond Rick. So yeah, look, Alabama can have a really, really strong finish on Wednesday. Honestly, the way Wednesday plays out, it's going to kind of define how people look at this class. Are they going to be able, you look at Tony Mitchell taking an official visit to Texas A&M. Holding on to him is obviously going to be a top priority. Which players are going to be able to land who are unsigned? Top of the list being James Smith, Qua Russaw, and then also are they going to be able to pull off a flip or two? So yes, Wednesday is going to be a day with some big storylines one way or the other for Alabama.
Need to tell everybody now a message from the NHTSA. Let's say you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. So you come right, it's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Well, you could lose your insurance. You could lose your license. You could lose your job. You could total your car. You could kill yourself or kill somebody else. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads. They're there to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's life forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Okay, Qua Russaw, James Smith, they are the talk of the recruiting world. I mean, they are the talk. Kadyn Proctor's wedged his way in there now, but Qua Russaw and James Smith have been like, it's so interesting that they're so tied at the hip. I mean, how many times have we ever heard somebody say, well, if you get this guy, you'll get this guy. Never comes to fruition. These two guys literally seems like you get this one, you're going to get that one. James Smith apparently will be taking an unofficial to Auburn this weekend. Qua Russaw going to sit it out. He's probably just sort of tired of the recruiting process, I wager. But in the end, just tell us where you think these two guys end up.
Yeah, this is tough, because you look at that last minute unofficial to Auburn that wasn't previously planned or previously thought that, James Smith was going to be taken. It was initially reported that both were going, and then now it's going to be one. Yeah, I think that's kind of leads things to be a little bit up in the air just because you never know how that's going to go. It seems like things went pretty well with their meeting with Hugh Freeze on Wednesday. So I haven't made an official prediction just yet. I think I told you before I would lean Alabama. I think I would still stick by that. I haven't heard enough to make me, switch that, switch where I'm leaning. But this is gonna be an interesting battle till the very end, just because Auburn's a program that they're very familiar with. They've been on campus, I think, 4 times during the fall for game day visits. Took an official visit there in June. Had previously visited multiple times before then. So they have a lot of familiarity just with the culture at Auburn and just the program in general, not necessarily the staff, because obviously there's, a new staff coming in, but, just everything about Auburn they're familiar with. And then you have Alabama, which is obviously did not fire their head coach. I mean, that would be the news of the century. But, they still have the same head coach, still have the same, assistant coaches that are recruiting them, the same primary and secondary coaches. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. I think it's a lot tighter, than I initially assumed it would be coming down this home stretch. I thought once, Brian Harsin was fired that it would kind of seal the deal for Alabama. But, these are two young men who, they kind of look at recruiting a little bit differently than most. They're obviously approaching it different than most by being a 5-star package duel. Something I've never seen in my time doing this. So, I think we should wait to see what happens this weekend, but I'd still probably give the slight edge to Alabama.
And really quickly, I don't know how much basketball stuff you do, but Alabama's got a big one against Gonzaga this weekend, obviously in Birmingham. And I know you're not in Alabama, so you probably won't get to go, but it's going to be a fun game. What are your thoughts on the basketball team so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, you squeaked out a 3-point win against Memphis. You're able to beat 2 number 1 teams at the time, North Carolina and Houston. Houston being the most impressive one, obviously, because North Carolina wasn't really viewed as a number 1 team that lost before. They weren't playing like a number 1 team, but you have Houston on the road, such a difficult matchup, and to win that game and to climb into top 5 of the rankings. I mean, who would have ever thought that we'd be saying Alabama basketball is ranked higher than Alabama football? I mean, my goodness, that's something. But credit to Nate Oates and company. They have a really good, mixture of length, intensity on defense. I think they're going to be a tough team to score on. I know it wasn't necessarily the case against Memphis. I think they're going to be a tough team to score on when it comes to March Madness, just because of what they bring to the table from a size perspective, from a length perspective. They're really active. They're coached really, really hard. If they can shoot in that, I want to say high 30s, low 40s type range from distance during the tournament, because I mean that's at the point what we're talking about, Luke, with this team. How far they can be able to make it in the tournament, because they seem like a team that's poised to have a solid regular season run based on this non-conference start. When you talk about their NCAA tournament projections, there's going to be a few factors: the 3-point shooting, how consistent it's going to be, the defensive intensity. Are they going to be able to maintain that in March? Against tough team after tough team, and then Brandon Miller, is he going to be able to be the guy that we saw against Memphis and saw against teams before, or is he going to have some of those struggles like he did against Houston? Though you have to applaud him for what he did with knocking down those clutch free throws down the stretch, but you look at this Alabama team, I think there's some reason to be excited here. They're a team that can definitely make a run, and you have to love the way that the true freshmen are playing early on, and especially Noah Clowney. I mean, he's been incredible. He has been fantastic. His rebounding and ability to stretch the floor has been amazing. You just look at this team top to bottom. They seem like they can make a run, a really strong run.
What's funny about Noah Clowney, I think he is playing like an upper tier college guy, but Brandon Miller is just sort of in his own stratosphere. I mean, he's sort of
Yeah.
like it's like he's already pro, but Noah Clowney is playing so well by Alabama historical references here. He would be the one of the top freshmen in Alabama history, if you ask me. But Brandon Miller's playing just at such a professional level that it's almost like Noah Clowney gets discounted, which he shouldn't. I mean, he's the Damari Brown of this basketball team. I mean, he's awesome, and it's just because you got these other Kadyn Proctors and James Smith and Qua Russaw, you sort of overlook him sometimes. But man, I don't even know why Noah Clowney even plays anymore. You should just put in the box score. I'm going to get 16 points and 11 rebounds. I do every game. I mean, I do that every game. I am solid as a rock with that. So, man,
and
Joseph,
Jaden Bradley's been amazing too.
Yeah.
He's really given Alabama a spark off the bench there, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they kind of do with that point guard situation. Who gets to handle the ball. I think Javon Quinterly, when he's on, he's on. But when he's off, he makes some decisions. When taking it to the cup that are a little bit questionable. Against Houston, he went up. He was like under the backboard and three defenders around him. He needs to make some smart decisions. But I like what I've seen from Mark Sears when he's been involved in the game plan. He can. Speaking of someone who gets hot, he's hot. That's Mark Sears from beyond the 3-point line. So yeah, you'd look at that mixture of veteran leadership and the young guys. I mean, it kind of seemed like a perfect formula for Bama to make potentially a Final Four run, dare I say.
God, let's hope so. I mean, in my lifetime, it would just it's just something that's just got to happen. I got to go see one. I've been to a Final Four. I've been to a national championship. Of course, Alabama wasn't involved in either, but it was a ton of fun. And I'd love to go to one. I'd lose my mind. But Joseph, man, you're the absolute best. I mean, you jumped on last second. Totally appreciate you, bro. And I hope that you have a fantastic holiday season. And if we ever get some Locked On merch, you're the first person I'm sending some to. We just don't have any, but if I ever get some, I'm sending it to you, bro.
I'm looking forward to it. And, as the NFL players used to say after winning a Super Bowl, I'm heading to Disney World. I'm going to Disney World today. So that's my one and only time I can say that. So I took advantage of it. But, yeah, I thank you so much, Luke, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Who are you going to Disney World with?
Oh, going with my family. I'm back home, for the holidays. So yeah, my mom, my dad, my brother, heading out to do that Mickey's Merry Christmas thing they have there. So very excited about that. Yes, very excited.
Good. Well, here's the thing. If I were you, I would find some side hustles after this because all of you will be broke. We went to Disney World about 12 years ago. My parents took my brother and his family and me and my family. And I mean, I'm going to say plus or minus 15 to 20 grand later, we get home.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. Yeah. And we're not staying on the resort, which is what I think you may have done, right? Disney. Yeah. We're staying off Disney. It's already enough pain to get in. It's like $180 a ticket. They've really hiked up the prices. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good time. I'll be on my phone though. Waiting for all the notifications, the Kadyn Proctor tweets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Because with Kadyn Proctor, everything's a small world because he's so big. See what I did there.
Yep.
But what I will say, this one more Disney story that my youngest son, who at the time we took him was 2 or 3, and he did throw up in the gift shop, and I kind of was like, okay, that made me feel better about some of this money I spent. Like somebody had to work extra. So I like that. Anywho, Merry Christmas, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us, and Roll Tide.
Merry Christmas, Luke. Thank you so much. Roll Tide.